I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with Avi Chesla, who is the founder and CEO of Boston-based Empow. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming down. And you do R&D in Israel.
Yeah, we have a center of R&D in near Tel Aviv,
That's
in Ramat Gan, and our headquarters is in Boston, when we run the sales and support marketing operations.
Good. Well, let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Empow.
Yeah, sure. So I have something near to 20 years of experience in the cybersecurity. I myself started as an algorithm researcher, so from the technical area. And then...
Do you have all the Knuth volumes on your shelf somewhere?
Yeah.
Me too.
And right, and I think it was early 2000, and I had a chance to be part of a small Israeli-based startup company. We were developing a behavioral-based intrusion prevention system in the early 2000s. The system was the company was acquired by another Israeli company called Radware, it's a public company.
I know them well.
Yeah, in 2006, early 2006, and this is how I started, to get some experience in bigger companies like Radware. I was responsible to develop their security portfolio as the manager of the business unit of the security part of Radware. Which eventually became a very successful one. Right. So I had the roles of the VP of the security products and the CTO of the company. And then I decided to start again, and I founded Empow in late 2014.
What does it take to found a company? Do you round up some of your friends and get them in a room and say, hey, let's do it? Or did you go get some funding? Or how did you get started?
Yeah, so the thing was, you probably remember, I think in 2010, 2011, there was some trend of networking called software-defined networking.
Yeah,
right?
Still going.
Still going, the SDN. And I always thought when I was in Radware and we were developing a solution that will integrate into this architecture or new ideas of how to manage
the enablement
network.
Of things,
yeah.
WAN and so on.
Yeah, exactly. I look at that area as something very attractive in terms of try to abstract the complexity of the networking and allow the engineers actually to create by themselves or empower them to create by themselves better solutions with the infrastructure they have that will meet their business needs better. And I always thought in these years that we should do something about security in that area as well. So it's like virtualizing the security infrastructure and not necessarily only the underlying network infrastructure. So the idea came to me with to do something like that during my years in Radware, and then in 2013 I said, it's about time that I will try to do it myself, because I guess this is the way to do things, right? Create your own company and lead through that.
So the product, the solution, your platform, is described as intent-based SIEM. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Tell us what that means.
Yeah, I think it's required a definition, because when we talk about intent, we first of all define it as the attacker intent. And everybody try to understand what is the attacker intent. We have about 16 patents that only talk about, we call it the mind reading patents, the attacker mind reading. And as security expert or security analysts in organization, we all the time trying to search for the attacker intent. We know that if he will try to penetrate into organization, we know that he will try to look for some kind of our crown jewels, right? Our places in which he can steal information from or make damage. But when we are talking about attacker intent, we really talk about the tactics, how the attacker think to penetrate, how he thinks to propagate into the network assets inside our organization, and how we plan to execute his final intent, which can be service disruption, it can be some data manipulation, it could be exfiltration, data leak, and so on. So when we are talking about attacker intent, an intent-based SIEM, it's a security event information management system that has the intelligence to understand that and really investigate what is the attacker intent in the organization.
I see. Now, to do that type of work, the analytics required would be pretty advanced. It's not, that's not easy stuff. So how do you approach that? And I know you've had some partnerships. You've announced some partnerships recently with other vendors. Tell us a little bit about the analytics and a little bit about how you've created some partnerships that you've announced recently that we can better understand.
Yeah, so the whole concept of Empow is about really integrate with the ecosystem and be able to make more of what the customer or the organization already has. Yeah. It includes the data and the data sources. It includes the security tools and solution that he already has inside the organization. Try to make more of what we already have. Because the problem today is not the lack of tools or lack of data. There is enough data, there are enough security tools and technologies that are deployed, and customers invest a lot in that. And it's all about how you make them much more effective and work together as one security ecosystem. So in order to do that, for us, advanced analytics or security analytics means, in the world of the category of security event management platform, is the ability to digest large amount of data coming from the IT infrastructure, including security tools, logs, including threat intelligence feeds, including network data, network flows, and apply advanced algorithms that know how to classify these messages, these pieces of data, into what we call attacker intent. Think about it as an attack story. And each step of the story, each stage of the story, has some more specific intent. And what we are doing with the advanced analytics that we developed is the ability, and we use NLP, natural language processing algorithms there, that were trained to digest all the data from your security tools and from your IT, general servers, operating system, all the user activity logs and things like that. So not necessarily security logs, also non-security logs, and classify them into potential attacker intents. And these NLP algorithms were trained to do that. We trained to do it based on different types or families of data sources.
Probably unstructured data if it's NLP.
Unstructured and structured data, but it's very important to have the ability for unstructured data.
It's not easy to parse.
Yeah, it's not easy to parse. So it's like adaptive parsers that know how to digest the data, identify what class of attacker intent it can be associated with. It can be privilege escalation, it can be data manipulation, it can be just abnormal login into some kind of application, and do that automatically, because there is not enough time for a security analyst to digest all these logs, go out for threat intelligence feeds and read all the threat intelligence, human threat intelligence data that is out there. It's important to read, but there is not enough time to do it. And then based on that, classify this log or group of logs that we collect into an attacker intent. And we have automated all this process. We know how to read the logs, structure and unstructured data. These NLP algorithms were trained to understand that and classify that into groups or labels of attacker intents. And if there is not enough information inside the logs, we know how to go outside, take threat intelligence feeds, because there is enough data outside that security experts and also the attacker themselves expose in different ways and write about it. So we were able to design a system that knows also how to read that information and information inside the organization, and based on that, classify everything. And then we have developed a cause and effect analytics engine that try to identify if there is a real story here. Because once you classify logs into attacker intent, it doesn't mean yet that the attack will be successful and the attack is really developed successfully inside the organization. So the cause and effect analytics is very important in order to see if something happened also in the past, which is the root cause of what we see right now, and also to predict what is the possible next steps for the attack to be successful. So these next steps should be executed. So the system knows how to look back and also to wait for the next step, and if it's really executed, we create an attack story. We prioritize that on top of all the noise, because most of the data is noise and it's not relevant for attacks, and allow the organization to then focus on the real things, on the real signals, and mitigate or remediate. We have different types of automation that we have orchestration engine built in that are meant to do that. So you can say that we have took all the data from the IT infrastructure. We know how to digest it. We know how to take data from outside, threat intelligence data. And then we know how to classify that into more predictable and common one language of security, the security of the language of security intent. And then we found a way to see if all these pieces and intents actually assemble a real attack story, and if they are, we prioritize
Makes
it.
sense. What was the thinking behind the partnership with Elastic? How did that enhance the overall analytic picture?
Right. So it started about a year ago when we saw more and more customers of Empow that say, we have an Elastic infrastructure, Elastic search stack already deployed. And they said, we tried by ourselves to build some security analytics on top of it or as part of it. And although these customers were pretty technical and experts, they told us, it's very complicated. It's too complex. We don't have enough time. Sometimes we don't have the expertise. In any case,
it's also not their business, right?
It's not our business,
right?
so it's exactly. They like it for a week or two, and then it's because it's not their business. They cannot continue and maintain it and create some effective solution.
Of course.
So they said, your technology can really solve that issue for us. We already have a great data lake or data repository with search function from Elastic. Why don't you as a company integrate into their infrastructure and provide this value that we need, this security layer of security intelligence and analytics? And at the same time, Elastic, the company, I think we know that they also heard from their customers about security needs, which they cannot support them well. The DNA of the company is Elastic. It's a search company. It's not a security company. So they look and did some due diligence for more than 20 different startup and maybe bigger companies in the cybersecurity market, and decided to work with us, with Empow. And of course, we were very happy to do it because it makes sense. And this is how it started.
It's great. That nice win-win.
Yeah.
That's the way you like it.
Yeah.
So.
And we believe that we always thought, and this is why we call the company Empow, this empowerment of the cybersecurity experts and the community, that we should provide them a platform that allow them really to create new solution by themselves. And the whole approach of Elastic is pretty the same, right? It's an open source. They have a very large community that helps to build new solutions on top of the platform. And we believe that our integration as part of this platform, will allow to do it much better in the security space and for SIEM.
You mentioned open source.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, and what's been your philosophy, for your own company with the open source community?
Yeah. So you remember Snort, right? I think
Absolutely.
there are some very successful examples.
It's still taught in every graduate school, I think, in America when you take a course in computer security, right?
Yeah.
You snort rules, right?
Yeah, and it's all right. And even though now there is a commercial company, SourceFire, which is part of Cisco, still Snort is being developed and it's being used.
Right.
And it's the power behind Snort was really the community that created so many attack patterns or signature and showed it to everybody.
That's true.
And my belief and our company believe that without the community, and I think now more than ever, because the threat landscape is changing so fast, you need this crowd intelligence and the community to contribute all the time.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you cannot evolve and create solution fast enough against, that will meet the new needs.
Right.
And we don't believe in vendor lock. Of course, we are a vendor. We are trying to sell more and more, and it's important for us. But at the same time, we don't think that we can be successful, and our customer will be successful without the open source piece.
Yeah.
So we decided to contribute and to the community, to the Elastic community, an open source part of our software that would allow the customers or the users of Elastic to digest data. So if you know the Elastic stack includes this southbound layer, which digests all the data. They call it the Logstash and Bleed plugins. So we are integrating there with an open source plugin that allows to collect the data and enrich it with attacker intent tag. Meaning that very early in the pipeline, before we store the data in the database, we already enrich the data with this class of attacker intent category. And then that data is being stored in the database, in the Elasticsearch. And the index and the tags are associated with it from the time it actually is there. Which allow, first of all, to security investigators, security analysts to search according to attacker intent. Because think about it, how can you search or hunt for intent today based on parameter that exists inside the data? You need to know what is the attack pattern, you need to know what is the malware name, what is the URL that represents the phishing site, and so on. And you cannot know it because it's changing all the time, and there are created new malwares and variants all the time. So it's really impossible to hunt for intent unless there is a technology or something that allows you to enrich the data with these intent labels, and then you search for that intent. So we created a situation which is open source that now the data is searchable according to intent parameters.
That's extremely powerful.
And we strongly believe that this contribution will allow the customers today and the users that they don't need to pay for it to search for data inside the organization according to intent, and that will significantly accelerate the hunting for attacks that are going on in the organization. And then if they need more advanced analytics, like I talked about the cause and effect analytics and prioritization and some automatic actions and response, then they can upgrade and have our full solution, the commercial solution.
Now, let me ask you about sort of the ecosystem and the interfaces. If I'm a customer, I buy the Empow platform, how easy or difficult is it to drop this intent-based SIM into an existing environment? Because nobody has a greenfield anymore.
Yeah,
everybody's running a big mess.
Right.
What do you do? I assume it's an open platform. So is it a matter of building connectors, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, because everybody asks us, this is the first question that we, existing Elastic user or people that already have data repository.
Yeah. Everybody has something
they have something, some kind of centralized log management platform. And the way that it works is that we know how to integrate into the level of where the parsers exist, where you digest the data. And we know how to integrate our, what we call attacker intent-based plugin. Mm-hmm. So when the parsers that exist already, that know how to take the logs, start to do the parsing work, we teach them through this plugin what parameter to extract from the logs and send to our plugin. Mm-hmm. And these plugins know how to classify accordingly the attacker intent, and then put it back as another metadata into that log. Then when it's go up to the database, when it's stored, it's already with these tags or labels and it's being indexed accordingly. Yeah. And then on top of that, once it's being tagged with the information of intent, our cause and effect analytics know how to read it and then identify if there is a real attack, what we call real attack story, that start to be developed, and prioritize that. So if existing Elastic users, we just provide an additional Logstash plugin that they need to configure, or our professional services configure for them. And that's being done pretty much seamlessly. So it takes a few hours to configure, and adjust it to the existing plugins that they have. And from there on, we know how to do the other things that I talked about.
That's very helpful. Now you're an expert, and you're sort of been at this for many years, so you're a veteran. We love to ask sort of future trend guesses and predictions, and why don't you tell us a little bit about where you think this is going? Any technologies that you think are going to be important? I'd love to ask about AI. And what do you think? Again, you're an expert. You've been at this a long time. What do you think's real, and what are you less excited about?
Yeah. Well, there are two things that I believe in that can really happen. I wish it will happen, because I think it will be very helpful for the cybersecurity community. The first thing, everybody talk about predictive algorithms and how we can expect the next step of the attack, and before it's actually happening, and prevent it.
Right. Using machine learning or deep learning?
Yeah, it can be deep learning and different machine learning types of models that can be implemented. So I believe this is really feasible, and we can reach that.
I do too. I think so. Yeah.
In order to do it, I think the only way that will be create feasibility here to really achieve that is really look top down, not bottom up. Mm-hmm. You need to look for these attack stories of strategies of the attackers and learn them. This is one thing, and there are algorithms that know how to do that, to see sequences of attacks and then predict based on previous learning what will be the possible next steps. Mm-hmm. And that, in order that this, that will work, we must use the threat intelligence, this human-defined threat intelligence that is out there. And this is why I think NLP, which we're already using, will be critical for that, because you all the time need to understand what's going on all over the globe, right? And digest the data from the good guys and also from the bad guys about different types of techniques and attack tools that they have developed. And if you have the ability on one hand to learn the sequences of the past and also learn all the time the threat intelligence, read it automatically, classify that, create potential attack story based on that, then we have the chance to take all that information and we see some initial steps start to happening in the organization. We can predict, the attack story before it actually ends or comes even to the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And then we can be very proactive. So I think that it's two things here. One, be able to automatically digest all these documents or unstructured data that represented by again, the bad guys and the good guys know how to read that, and this is text classification, and one and the other see, from higher level, how the troops are usually going, what are the steps that they are taking. If you correlate this information together, you can predict the next steps when you see the initial ones.
Well, that's a very hopeful view. I share it with you. I think that's right. I think your background in algorithms makes you uniquely qualified to be predictive about that. So, right. Hey, listen, thank you so much for coming by and sharing. I loved listening to your comments. I wish you well with the company. I know you guys are growing and doing a lot of business, and I hope you'll come back and share with us soon.
Of course,
as you
I'll be happy
continue to
to
make progress. Wonderful to see you, Avi.
Thank you very much, Ed. Good to see you.
And we will see you next time.